Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. And Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you, dear listeners. Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
It's wonderful to be exploring this history with you all.
This Deep Dive comes to you from the creators of babelilm.app, and it's part of our AI-narrated series based on the incredible historical work, A Probe into the History of Ashura.
That's right. Authored by Dr. Ibrahim Ayati, who is a really esteemed Iranian Shia historian, researcher, and preacher from 1916 to 1964, a foundational text for understanding these events.
Absolutely. So what's our objective for today's Deep Dive?
Well, today we really want to get into the details surrounding the invitation that came from the people of Kufa to Imam Husayn alayhi salam.
And specifically the Imam's response, right? Sending his trusted cousin.
Exactly. His decision to send Muslim bin Aqil, his cousin, as his envoy, his sort of lone envoy initially, to check things out.
It's such a critical moment.
It really is. It's not just some minor detail. This is a pivotal turning point. It shows Imam Husayn's, incredible foresight and really sets the stage for everything that follows, the destiny that shaped Islamic history, really.
Okay, so before we dive into the letters and Muslim bin Aqil's journey, we need to set the scene properly. Let's go back to that time, right after Muawiyah's death.
Yes, context is crucial here. What you're seeing in the Islamic Caliphate at this point is, frankly, a tragic deviation.
It had moved away from its roots, hadn't it?
Completely. The Caliphate, which should have been grounded in pure Islamic principles, justice, piety, consultation, Shura had started looking much more like, hereditary kingdoms.
Like the old empires, the Caesars or Kisras.
Precisely. Power was being passed down, inherited, rather than earned through piety or the community's choice. The spiritual and ethical core was eroding rapidly.
And into this situation steps Yazid.
Yes, Yazid. And A Probe into the History of Ashura makes it implicitly clear, across many sections discussing his character and the Imam's motivations, that Yazid was, notorious.
Notorious for impiety.
Absolutely. Flagrant disregard for basic Islamic commands. The sources describe him as someone known for drinking, for immoral activities, someone who didn't even pray consistently.
Which is just shocking for someone claiming leadership of the Muslims.
It's more than shocking. His very presence on the throne, his public conduct, it wasn't just a political problem, it was an existential threat to Islam itself. It felt like the whole moral fabric of the Ummah was at risk.
Right. So let's unpack this a bit. The weight on Imam Husayn alayhi salam, his decision not to pledge allegiance to Yazid.
It was immense. This wasn't about a personal grievance or political maneuvering.
No, it was about the survival of Islam, wasn't it?
Exactly. As the grandson of the Holy Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Imam Husayn knew silence was complicity. He saw Yazid's rule as potentially obliterating Islam.
He even said something to that effect, didn't he?
He did. He's recorded as saying that if the Ummah falls under someone like Yazid, then, you might as well say goodbye to Islam. That's how dire he saw the situation.
Wow. So it was a stand to preserve divine law, the Quran, everything the Prophet had worked for.
Everything. To stop it all being turned into a mockery, a plaything for the impious.
And it's right here in this crisis, this refusal, that the Kufa story really starts, doesn't it?
It ignites. His refusal becomes the spark.
So how did the news travel? I mean, no instant messaging back then.
No, indeed. It traveled the old ways, merchants, pilgrims, travelers carrying news across the deserts. But the impact was huge.
Especially the news of Imam Husayn's firm refusal to pledge allegiance to Yazid.
Yes, his clear, unequivocal stance, especially given Yazid's reputation, it resonated deeply like a shockwave across the Islamic lands.
People who still cherish the true teachings of Islam must have felt something shift.
A stir, definitely. A sense of hope, maybe. A sense that someone was finally standing up for the truth. They saw Imam Husayn's defiance as that beacon against the darkness Yazid represented.
And this news reached Iraq, specifically Kufa.
It certainly did. And Kufa was, fertile ground. It had a long, complex history with Imam Ali, alayhi salam, and his family, the Alul Bayt.
It was a major center for the Shia, the supporters.
Absolutely. So when news of Yazid's rule and Imam Husayn's refusal arrived, the supporters of Imam Ali there were deeply concerned. They saw the danger Yazid posed to Islam.
And they started to organize.
They did. Our source, A Probe into the History of Ashura, mentions specifically, this is in Chapter 2, page 32, that the faithful supporters began gathering.
Where did they meet?
At the house of a key figure, Suleiman bin Surd Khuzai. This wasn't just a random meeting, it was the start of a coordinated response.
So what happened at Suleiman's house? What were they discussing?
Well, these were serious, concerned discussions. They were looking at the state of the Ummah under Yazid, his open impiety.
And confirming their view of Imam Husayn's stance.
Yes, they assessed it all. They saw the truth in Imam Husayn's stand and the clear falsehood and corruption of Yazid's regime. They debated, weighed the risks, and decided action was needed. Silence wasn't an option.
It feels like a moment of real clarity for them.
It does, and that brings us to a really critical insight from the book, from Suleiman bin Surd himself.
Oh, what did he say?
He had this profound understanding of, well, human nature under pressure. He observed, and this is quoted in chapter 2, so long as there is no question of making sacrifices, the people can distinguish very well between truth and falsehood and make no mistake about it.
Wow, that's quite insightful. And maybe a bit ominous.
Deeply insightful, and yes, with hindsight, tragically prescient. It suggests that, initially, when the cost wasn't immediate, their judgment was clear. They knew truth from falsehood.
Because it didn't cost them anything personally at that moment.
Exactly. They saw Imam Husayn as the beacon of truth because, at that specific point, supporting him didn't require immediate, tangible sacrifice. Their assessment was clear-eyed. They needed a true imam.
But Suleiman's words hint at the challenge to come. What happens when sacrifices are required?
Precisely. That initial clarity, that conviction was the foundation. But would it hold?
So, from that meeting at Suleiman's house, the idea of inviting Imam Husayn took root.
It solidified into action. The resolve grew. They must invite the imam to Kufa to lead them.
And this wasn't just a few people.
Oh, no. It snowballed. It became this overwhelming flood of communication, a real deluge of letters heading towards Makkah.
A deluge. How many were we talking about?
The book, in chapter 3, describes it vividly. Letters from the Kufans piled up with the imam and the messengers from Iraq gathered in Makkah.
Piled up?
Yes. And it specifically mentions around 150 letters were sent from Kufa to the imam in Makkah.
150 letters. Imagine that. Each one carried by messenger. Across those distances.
Exactly. Think of the scene messengers arriving, exhausted, each carrying these scrolls. Not just official documents, but personal pleas, collective invitations, testimonies of their longing for salvation from Yazid's rule.
It shows a significant portion of the city must have been behind this.
It certainly appears that way. A city, or a very large part of it, seemingly united in this desperate call for the imam's guidance.
Hundreds of personal appeals. Each one a cry for help, really.
They were fervent pleas. It wasn't just please come. It was expressing a deep, desperate need.
What exactly did they say in these letters?
They poured their hearts out. They wrote about their dire need for a true imam, someone to uphold justice. They expressed this hope that through Imam Husayn, Allah would unite them again on the path of truth and guidance.
Pull them away from the corruption Yazid represented.
Yes, they urged him, proceed whenever you like, showing this readiness, this impatience almost.
And didn't they also mention the state of the land?
They did. They painted this picture of readiness, of prosperity waiting for him. There's that famous quote from chapter 3, page 34. The gardens and the deserts are green and fresh. Your Iraqi soldiers are ready to receive you.
Green and fresh. It sounds so inviting, so promising.
It conveyed readiness, abundant resources, and soldiers waiting. They even promised jihad, struggle in God's path, and sacrifice. They said they'd lay down their lives for him. It was powerful, emotional.
It really speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
More than an invitation, a promise, a vision.
A vision of flourishing lands, devoted followers, a collective cry for deliverance, for the return of true Islamic principles.
The pressure on Imam Husayn must have been immense. He wasn't just getting an invitation, he was being seen as their only hope.
The embodiment of their aspirations.
So faced with this flood of letters, these incredibly passionate pleas, did the Imam just pack up and go?
No, he didn't, and this is crucial. Despite the sheer volume, despite the apparent sincerity, Imam Husayn didn't immediately head to Kufa.
Which shows his wisdom, right? His caution.
Absolutely. It was a calculated response. Deep wisdom, foresight, meticulous thinking. He knew the volatility, Kufa's history, of sometimes shifting loyalties.
He couldn't afford to be reckless.
Not at all. A leader like him needed verification. He needed to be sure this wasn't just temporary fervor.
So how did he respond to the letters?
His reply, which is mentioned in chapter 3 of the book, shows both that caution and still a sense of hope. He addressed it from Hussein bin Ali to the believers and Muslims of Iraq.
Acknowledging them directly.
Yes. He mentioned their last messengers, Hani and Saeed, had brought the letters. He said, I have read what you have written and pondered over it. He acknowledged their plea. You have written that you do not have an imam and asked me to come to you so that Allah may perhaps draw you together on truth and guidance through me.
So he understood their request, took it seriously.
Very seriously. But then he did something profound in that same reply.
What was that?
He used the opportunity to define what a true imam actually is, the standard he held and the standard they claimed to be seeking.
What was his definition?
It's powerful. Quoting from chapter 3 again. I swear by my life that a true imam and leader is only he who takes decisions according to the Quran, establishes justice, promotes the divine religion, and dedicates himself to the path of Allah.
Wow, that's setting the bar high. It's not just about political leadership.
Not at all. It was a statement of principle, a criterion, almost an implicit question to the Kufans. Are you really ready for this kind of leadership? One based purely on the Quran, justice, absolute dedication to God, or do you just want someone to overthrow Yazid?
He was making it clear his goal wasn't worldly power.
Precisely. He was the spiritual, ethical guide. This definition became a kind of test for them.
It's such a lesson in leadership, isn't it? Meticulous, principled, yet still hopeful.
Absolutely. He understood the responsibility, the need for verification before taking such a monumental step. His actions were guided by wisdom, principle, and frankly, a deep understanding of human nature. Promises made in passion can waver under pressure.
So he needed someone on the ground to assess the situation accurately.
Exactly. He needed an envoy, someone he trusted implicitly, to go and verify the Kufans' sincerity and their actual strength.
This is where Muslim bin Aqil comes in.
Yes. Imam Husayn chose his cousin, Muslim bin Aqil, a man of immense trust, capability, and unwavering loyalty.
How is he described in the sources?
Chapter 3 of A Probe into the History of Ashura calls him the Imam's beloved cousin, a man in whom the Imam had full confidence.
Full confidence, that says it all.
It really does. Muslim wasn't just any messenger. He was known for his courage, his piety, his wisdom, a pillar of the Ahlul Bayt. Sending him was like sending a part of himself, a reflection of his own values, to test the waters.
And the Imam gave him specific instructions.
Very specific, very strategic instructions, far more than just go and see.
Like what?
Well, first, tread the path of piety, always be guided by moral principles. Second, keep his mission secret, crucial, given the political climate and spies.
Discretion was key.
Absolutely. Third, be lenient and moderate. His job wasn't to stir up immediate conflict, but to gauge support, build unity diplomatically.
And the most critical instruction.
To inform the Imam immediately if he found that the people supported the rising and revolution. This is from chapter 3, page 34. It shows the Imam's caution. Muslim was to verify, not instigate. He needed to know if the Kufans' fervor was real, committed support.
The fate of the whole mission rested on his assessment.
And potentially his own life. He knew the stakes.
These instructions really highlight Imam Husayn's strategic mind, don't they?
Yeah.
Careful planning, concern for everyone involved.
Deeply strategic. He wasn't sending Muslim to provoke, but to confirm, to build a solid foundation if the support was genuine.
Did Muslim bin Aqil go alone?
No, he had a small, trusted group with him. Chapter 3 lists them. Qais bin Mashar Saydawi, Amara bin Abdullah Saluli, and Abdul Rahman bin Abdullah Araji.
Loyal companions.
Committed individuals, embarking on this perilous journey with him into a city whose loyalty, while seemingly strong, was about to face a brutal test.
So Muslim bin Aqil arrives in Kufa. What was the reception like?
Initially, overwhelmingly positive, triumphant even. You can imagine the buzz in the city, the anticipation.
People were excited to see the Imam's envoy.
Incredibly enthusiastic. It seemed like all the promises in those letters were coming true. People flocked to him, eager for news, eager to pledge their allegiance. It really looked like a promising start.
Did many people actually pledge allegiance?
Yes, thousands. This is where the numbers become significant. Our source, A Probe into the History of Ashura, in chapter 4, page 35, gives two different figures, but both are substantial.
What are the numbers?
It says, according to Sheikh Mufid, 17,000 persons took the oath of allegiance to Muslim bin Aqil, but the number mentioned by Tabari is 12,000.
12,000 or 17,000. Either way, that's a huge number.
Exactly. Whichever number you lean towards, it's a massive portion of the city's population. This wasn't some fringe group. It looked like a genuine mass movement.
Thousands publicly committing themselves to Imam Husayn's cause through his representative.
It demonstrated a clear collective desire for change, for righteous leadership. At that moment, it must have seemed like Kufa was ready, truly ready. The initial signs were incredibly strong.
But success like that, It doesn't go unnoticed, does it?
Ah,
Especially by someone like Yazid.
not at all. Yazid had his network, his spies, the news of Muslims' arrival, the mass pledges of allegiance. It reached Damascus quickly.
And he wouldn't have been happy.
Far from it. Chapter 4 notes. Now Yazid came to know that Muslim had arrived in Kufa, and the supporters of Imam Ali had taken the oath of allegiance to him.
And he also heard about the current governor.
Yes. And Nu'man bin Bashir had shown weakness in taking action against him. Nu'man was seen as perhaps too mild, too indecisive for Yazid's liking in dealing with this growing movement.
So Yazid decided to act.
Immediately and ruthlessly. He couldn't tolerate this challenge.
What did he do?
He replaced Nu'man bin Bashir, and his choice of replacement was chilling.
Who did he appoint?
Ubaydullah bin Ziyad, the governor of Basra, already infamous for his cruelty and absolute ruthlessness.
Bringing him to Kufa was a clear signal.
A very clear, very brutal signal. This wasn't just changing administrators. It was bringing in an enforcer known for crushing dissent with an iron fist.
Did Yazid give Ibn Ziyad specific orders regarding Muslim bin Aqil?
Explicit orders. Chapter 4 records Yazid instructing Ibn Ziyad to pursue Muslim and captivate, kill, or banish him.
Capture, kill, or banish. No room for negotiation.
None whatsoever. It was a mandate for suppression. Ibn Ziyad was the perfect tool for Yazid's tyranny. His reputation preceded him. He would stop at nothing.
This really raises that question, doesn't it? What happens when that initial fervent conviction meets raw, oppressive power?
Exactly. The stage is set for a dramatic, heartbreaking turn. The hope, the pledges, the vision of a welcoming city, it's all about to be tested against the brutal machinery of the Umayyad state. The shift is coming.
So before that shift happened, Muslim bin Aqil saw this overwhelming support. Did he report back to Imam Husayn?
He did. Convinced by the thousands of pledges, the enthusiasm he witnessed, he fulfilled that crucial part of his mission.
He sent word back to Makkah.
Yes. Remember, Imam Husayn had told him to write if the elders and wise men confirmed the letters and messages. Muslim clearly felt that condition had been met.
So he sent a positive report.
Overwhelmingly positive. While we might not have the exact wording from this source, it's clear he confirmed the widespread support he'd received. He essentially signaled to the Imam that Kufa seemed ready, urging him to proceed.
That was the green light Imam Husayn was waiting for.
It was. Based on the assessment of his most trusted cousin, his envoy on the ground, it seemed the conditions were favorable. The report painted that picture of a welcoming city, ready for its true leader.
It must have been a moment of immense hope for the Imam, receiving that news.
Hope, certainly, but also immense weight. This positive report, this apparent triumph of Muslims' initial mission, it really sealed the next phase.
Setting the course for the journey towards Kufa.
Exactly. It encapsulates that point where hope met the unfolding and ultimately tragic reality of the situation. It highlights the weight of the decision based on the information available at that moment.
So we've covered the call from Kufa, those floods of letters, Imam Husayn's cautious response, and the initial, seemingly successful mission of his brave envoy, Muslim bin Aqil.
We've seen the hope, the planning, the overwhelming initial welcome in Kufa, and Muslims' confirmation sent back to the Imam.
But as we've hinted, the story of Kufa takes a sharp, tragic turn. That initial hope faced a brutal reality check.
Indeed. Connecting this to the larger narrative, the events that followed Muslim bin Aqil's hopeful report put loyalty, commitment, and conviction to the ultimate test under extreme pressure.
The city that seemed so ready. Its promises were about to be severely tested.
And the consequences, as history shows, were devastating.
Join us next time on The Deep Dive as we delve into exactly that. The dramatic, heartbreaking events that followed. Our next deep dive will focus on the betrayal of Kufa.
We'll explore how things unraveled so quickly and tragically.
Kuda Hafiz for now, and may peace be with you all.
May Allah enhance His blessings of guidance upon us and grant us abundant success in acquiring knowledge. Ameen.